How's it going?
We are straight in. Look at that.
Nice.
We worked it out so that our sound works.
Yeah, yeah, you live and you learn.
You live and you learn.
Hmm.
I do want to find out what happened last time, but it's not that important. Can I just check in with you then? How you found our last conversation?
Yeah, our last conversation was really insightful, actually. Um, it kind of got me thinking about the realities of being a therapist, um, and what that could mean for me or anyone else that I know that would be interested in going down this route. Um, and it was great to talk to, I can't remember what his name was at the end of the Zoom as well. I'm terrible with names, but
Derek.
it was Derek. Yeah, that was it. It was fantastic to talk to him, even though it was a very short period of time that we spoke. I feel like he has such a wealth of knowledge, and it just makes me think about all the other kind of people that are out there and all the other individuals that one could meet. Um, but yeah, great to get some knowledge from you, definitely. Um, I did a lot of kind of reflecting after our conversation. um, and I think I'm at a point in my life where, in the past, I wasn't 100% honest with myself about um, the sacrifices that one would need to make in order to take a certain path. And that's kind of been something that's scared me of doing some things in life. So definitely talking about those realities was it was really really helpful for me. So yeah, fantastic. I hope you do this with other people as well, because I'm sure it will turn on some light bulbs for loads and loads of people that are out there.
I think that's the job, if I'm honest. It is about turning on light bulbs and showing what is possible for an individual no matter
Yeah,
where they've come from and what they are hoping to do. And I'm sure you've experienced this, Lola, which is why I think you would be a really good therapist, counselor, psychotherapist. You
yeah,
turn on light bulbs, whether it's members of staff or for young people that you support.
yeah. No, it's good. It's good to hear it. Um, and I feel like that's the way the world should be. We should all be inspiring each other and helping each other to see the light. You know, so I think that's very important to me. Um, and I'm also at a stage where I'm trying to understand what my values really are in this life. I think that's really important, especially you know if you wanna find a job that's meaningful, or if you wanna be part of a community that you really respect and look up to. Knowing what those values are really important. And for me, light and honesty and truth are super important.
You highlighted values there, which I think is a really interesting beginning point. What
Yeah,
would you say then are your values in relation to supporting others?
I wrote this down actually. Let me see if I can find it. Bear with me.
Sure.
Shuffle through my diary like an old lady. Okay, so what was your question just now? What are my values?
Yes. Just in
Just
relation to just in relation to supporting others.
um, I'd say growth is one value I think is super important. I don't think we ever stop growing, but I feel like people become adults and then they put a cap on themselves, and then that's it. That's all the world is all about. This is what relationships is all about. You know, your bog standard life in the eyes of society. Um, but I think there's so much more than that. And in a way, I feel like the system, like education and the workforce and everything else, corporations are kind of set up to put a cap on like humanity in a sense because it keeps the money coming in. Um, and as long as the money's coming in, that everything else is irrelevant to people that are up there. But yeah, I feel like there's so much more to life. Um, Spirituality is, I think, is a big part of growth. I'm not necessarily talking about if you're Christian or blah blah blah. I think spirituality is very internal. Anyway, um, experimenting with art and things that you never think that you'd be good at. Things that you never thought you'd delve into because of your background and because of things that are frowned upon. I think when you take yourself out of those boxes, there's so much room for unlimited growth. So yeah, growth is definitely one. The other one I value, I'd say, in terms of helping people is freedom. Um, and it's more not necessarily freedom in the eyes of going everywhere you want to do and doing everything you want to do, but freedom in the sense of your own mind. Because I think everything starts from the mind, and sometimes I catch myself in situations or like conflict, or I'm having to deal with conflict at work, or I'm in an awkward situation with a family member, and I'm reacting in a way that's very kind of like small because I don't want to offend people. And then when I do that, I catch myself and I'm like, you're not really free, are you? Because you kind of care about the reaction you're going to get from these people, and that can be really limiting. And I think there's loads of people that are living their life based on what everybody else kind of thinks of them. I think that comes from a lot of anxiety and shame and all these other lovely things that kind of accumulate like with age or from childhood. But I think once you kind of get that freedom, that internal freedom within, then it just gives you so much more capacity to find out who you really are. Um, yeah, I'd say freedom and growth, and the ability in terms of value to be creative, to be creative, um, and not be kind of robotic in the way you think. Being flexible.
I think those three core values could make up a great educational program for so many.
Mm,
Whether you're in education, you're in forestry, you're in carpentry, mechanics, psychology, even. I think those three values are outstanding.
yeah.
And what I really want to find out also is how you came about them.
Um, how did I come about these? It was really recent, actually. Um, I grew up. I've come from a place of real dysfunction and trauma. Um, so I've struggled with a lot of like self-esteem issues, structure, things that allow you to function like a normal adult. um, those tools weren't given to me when I was young, so I had to find them along the way
Mm.
of becoming an adult. Um, and recently, I realized that I have never explored, like deeply explored, what really matters to me. I've kind of just been living and kind of going with the flow for a long time, even though I've done like impactful things and good things and you know whatever, but I've never sat down with myself and said like, actually, what really matters to me in this life, why am I doing all these things? So that was the catalyst in, just sitting down with myself and just really exploring my mindset. And
Mm.
I think I thought about it in the way like, when I'm to leave this earth, or when I look back, what would it all have been for?
Yeah. It's useful to have that perspective. Thinking about when time comes where this mortal experience ends and you look back on your life, what
Yeah,
will it have been about? Really useful.
yeah. I saw a clip of this old man like a few years ago, and he was coming towards the end of his life, and he was so depressed, um, because when he looked back, like he lived what people a lot of people would deem as a normal life. He got married, he worked for the majority of his life, he had children, but then he just sat down and he was like, I don't even know why I did all of that. I don't know. I don't know what was it. Well, what was it all for? And he was having this like existential crisis, even though he was like 80 something, 90 something years old. So that really made me think like, wow, you can get to that age and look back and be like, well, what was the point of all of that? It made me think, well, I have to make sure that there was a point for all of that when I look
Mm.
back. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I sent you a couple of courses,
Mm,
which are not extensive in terms of, or exhaustive in terms of all of the courses that the Southeast could provide in terms of educating you around counseling, psychotherapy,
yeah.
psychology. It's not. It was just what I knew was out there, and I thought I could send them to you for
Yeah.
you to just be aware of the types of courses that were available to you.
Yeah.
I'm wondering then, what's your next step? Because you're thinking about this profession, you're thinking about it, and I and
Yeah.
I and I caught the entrails of an imposter monster.
Yeah. It's funny how I even got to this point. I got to this point because in November I caught COVID for like the third time. Um, but this time the symptoms didn't go away. So it turned out that I've got long COVID, which I'm still dealing with now. But it had such a effect on me that I wasn't at work for quite a while, for a couple of weeks, I think for about 4 weeks. Um, and I did kind of delve into a little state of depression because I've never been not able to be physically able. um, and, I kind of thought to myself, well, I'm here now. I might as well make the most of it. I might as well make the most of it. And kind of being stagnant at that point led me down these paths that I never have time to explore because of
Sure,
work.
sure, yeah,
Um, so yeah, it allowed me to be creative again, and I love to draw and paint. I started reading more, and then I started thinking more. um, and you know, I love the job that I do. Um, I think in the past 3 years, it has been a very difficult transition. I won't go into the ins and outs of it because
sure,
we'll be here for ages, but
okay,
it's not been easy, but I feel like I think I mentioned last time I'm getting to that point where I've given like the best of myself
mm,
to this organization.
mm-hmm.
I'd love to continue to do some more work with them, in the future. For the foreseeable future, I probably will. But yeah, I think I'm at a place where I'd like to take my skills and really develop them and really grow them into something else. I'd like to have an evolution of self and therapy kind of struck out to me as a path that could do that. Um, yeah, I think the imposter monster comes from the thought of having to go, to uni to study. I think I mentioned last time that, anything to do with school, I've never been good at. I was convinced when I was a kid that I was incapable of learning. Um, and I know why that is now.
Please share. I'm interested to know.
Well, I thought I was stupid, basically. Um, I know a lot of people can probably relate, but when you're being kind of homeschooled, or your African or Caribbean parent is trying to teach you something and it's not getting through to your head, they'll kind of convince you through various beatings and and torture that you're not too bright. Um, and yeah, at school, I never really got that one-to-one attention. Somehow I always ended up kind of being the child that was overlooked. So any time I needed a bit of guidance or support with math or whatever it was, I didn't really get that. So I kind of clocked out at a stage, and I was like, oh, I'm just not good
What
at this.
what year roughly was that? What year of school was that? Because
That
I think
was,
that's really interesting what you just said. Home learning and then school learning.
yeah. I think that was about year five, like year four, year five,
Mm,
maybe even year three. Um, yeah, like I look back and I kind of can sum up how I felt as a kid. I felt very forgotten and very invisible. Um, and there've been some
mm,
positives that come out of that, because it's kind of like from a young age I've had to come inside myself, um, to kind of grow. Um, and also, I know that happens with trauma as well. A lot of people go inside themselves and retreat. So I've had to kind of unravel those things. Um, but yeah, that it all comes from a very young age, and
mm.
it's kind of stuck with me like super glue. Obviously, I know I can learn things. Like I know I can. It's just I feel like we make associations with things from our childhood, whether it's like sometimes even like food, or smell, like the memory of a smell,
Yes.
or it could be anything. But yeah, that's kind of stuck with me as an adult.
Here's the question then. We have the idea of the imposter monster and when it may have arrived for you.
Yeah.
You are now a little bit older. Is it going to continue following you into your future?
Well, I guess that's my choice.
That is your choice. Absolutely.
Um, I'm determined for it to not to. Even
Okay.
being a man, I've had like a lot of imposter syndrome. Oh my God. It took me ages to kind of say, actually, yeah, this is my job. um, yeah, that's up to me. I guess that's the most simple and straightforward
It
answer.
is. Would you say you're in that place to let go of the imposter monster now?
Yes, I am. Um, I'm definitely ready to let go of the imposter monster. I it's gonna take a bit of rewiring. It takes time, I think. I think some things kind of attach themselves to your brain like a little program, if that's all you've kind of known.
Yeah. I think what's interesting and useful for me, though, Lola, is you've also shown that you are very capable.
Hmm.
And we can either hold that up to the light and let that gain more radiance and warmth from the sun, and we can let go of the imposter monster. because it's not been proven to be true or correct, has it?
No, no, you're right. And I know, like I said it last time, we all know the truth. We all know the truth, but when you're programmed, it's like you know the truth, but this program is telling you that you need to do it this way. You need to think this way. It's like almost like a survival instinct. Um,
You're absolutely right. It is a survival instinct. I'm glad you said that because you have survived, but it's
mm,
followed you into your now,
yeah,
kind of limiting possibility,
yeah,
kind of taking things out of your hands if they were in your hands or to be given to you.
mm,
So, if we were to say goodbye to Imposter Monster, I wonder what life would look like.
I think life would be grand. Yeah, I think it would be grand. Um, I think the other thing that scares me is the sacrifice that I know I have to make to start from scratch in a field that is fairly new to me. Um, that's a bit scary. I'm not getting any younger as well.
I
So
um I mentioned last time we were speaking that YouTube is almost like a university. In fact, it is
yeah,
a university.
yeah,
And if there is a specific interest you have, I'm sure there is a YouTube video that could
definitely.
begin exploring and explaining various aspects.
Yeah,
And it's free.
yeah, yeah. I started utilizing it as well. I watched a video today actually about um, how to how to listen like a therapist, which is very interesting. Very interesting.
Please share. How do you listen like a therapist?
I think there were like 2 points that struck out to me. One of the first things the man said, I can't remember his name. I'm terrible with names.
It's okay.
One of the first things that he said was kind of ruminating back what somebody has just told you, because it forces you to listen on a deeper level. And also, if you say it back to that person, they can then tell you if what you said is correct, um, which I thought was actually really, really interesting. And I'm gonna do more of. I do that unconsciously when I'm talking to people,
Mm.
but knowing the effect of it is, it's really good to know that. That's why. What was the other one? How to listen like a therapist. Instead of saying how does that make you feel, asking someone what is that doing for you right now? Because if someone's feeling like shit and you ask them how they're feeling, that's not really effective. But if you ask them what that's doing for them right now, then it's a more impactful question. It's a deeper
Yeah.
question that makes them go a little bit more inside that feeling or that
hmm
experience. They
hmm
can really see. So yeah, those are like the 2 points that struck out from that video. Really interesting.
hmm I'm going to come back to the imposter monster because I think there's something here in you waving it goodbye, thanking it for its service. It's
Mm.
done an amazing job of helping you survive various different experiences. But what would it mean for you to kind of go, bye bye, thank you, bye bye, don't need you anymore, bye bye?
Mm. Um, do you know what? I think I think even if something's like good or bad, but we have an attachment to it, whatever good or bad is, if that attachment is there, it's like an umbilical cord almost. Because like you can look at like toxic relationships and domestic abuse and see how a lot of people choose to stay in those relationships and stay attached to those people. I think I think it's like this just natural human longing to want to be with something. Um, that's what I think it is. I think it's just a human way of living, um, being attached, whether it's a relationship or it's an item, or whatever. So I think like when I look at myself, I don't need the imposter at all. It's just another thing that's there that you know it's just there. It's like a shit friend, but but it's still a friend. Because you know it. You've spent a lot of time together and had some jokes, had some tears.
Probably a lot of tears, not so many jokes.
Or
That's
more,
my
yeah.
assessment. And if you could get a better friend other than the shit friend, would
Mm,
that not be advantageous to you?
of course, yeah, of course.
So we could say goodbye to shit friend and have the best friend.
Yeah, yeah, basically,
So get a best friend. Say goodbye to shit friend.
yeah, yeah. I can do that.
Okay.
I
Because
can do
I
that.
like I think I'm talking to two of you, and Imposter Monster is kind of saying don't leave,
Don't listen to
don't
him.
leave, don't leave me, don't leave,
Don't even try.
don't listen to this guy. This guy doesn't know what he's talking about. It's me and you all the way.
Yeah.
And I'm saying no. I think you want something different now.
Hmm. Yeah. No, I do. I do. Um, it's just doing it. I think.
Yep.
I think I spend a lot of time. Like, I remember doing this as a kid, like daydreaming, but it wasn't just daydreaming. It was fantasizing about being in a place or doing something. But I fantasized because I never believed I'd get there.
Okay.
Mm. And even if the opportunity arose for me to get that thing or do that thing, I chose to fantasize about it. It's, you know,
Yes.
an instant transmission in my mind that I didn't have to do physically.
Right.
If that makes any sense.
It makes perfect sense. And what's again coming forward is there is a future you, perhaps in your tomorrow, perhaps in next week, perhaps in next month. It's kind of going, come on, Lola, complete the
Yeah.
application. Come on, Lola, listen to more of those videos from that person that we can't remember on YouTube who advised that we listen in three-part harmonies
Mm.
and apply that more often in your day-to-day job and sacrifice. If that means giving up a day, giving up 2 days so that you could donate time, volunteer time, and become a counselor, that's what's
Yeah.
next.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. I know I'm going to do it. Like, I know I will. I already made that decision in my head. It's a bit of fear. A bit of like, oh God, how am I gonna pay the bill? How am I gonna do this? How am I gonna do that? But I just need to sit down and just write it. I think I just need to write
Yes,
those things out and come up with a formula that could work.
absolutely. And then once you've written it down and you've seen the formula and it working, then the next stage is to do.
Mm, yeah, yeah. That's the plan.
That is the plan.
That's the plan.
Mm,
So yeah, I guess watch this space.
absolutely, I will be. I definitely will be. It makes sense. Do you have any questions for me? I know I
Um,
asked this last time.
yeah. Um, is there any way to volunteer in terms of counselling? Is there like a way to get your foot in the door?
There is. There are various agencies and organizations that are always on the lookout for individuals who are looking to get into the profession, who need fodder, who need people who can spend time either on the phone, crisis lines, uh, Samaritans. Those are two organizations that always are looking for new volunteers to come through, and whether you can spend an hour, 5 hours, a weekend donating time, they would have you like that.
Right. That's good to know. Because I was thinking about that as well, just volunteering, um, to get a bit of experience and
Yeah,
to be surrounded by people that do the thing.
that do the thing. By the way, you do the thing, you just aren't calling it counseling.
I know, I know. Um, yeah, okay. Volunteering. I think I asked this question the last time. It's just kind of about the courses. Um, but I'm hesitant to even ask it because it's more like, how long is it going to take? How long is it going to take? And I know that's not the best way to approach things in life. Some things are going to take time, um, which is something I'm kind of coming to terms with. I think that's the other thing I'm coming to terms with is the length of time this could possibly take.
You know, you mentioned earlier about growth as one of your
Yeah,
core values. Growth, unfortunately, in many cases, does not happen overnight.
I
It
know.
takes a period of time,
Yeah.
whether it be a year, 2 years, 3 years.
Mm,
It takes that time to become then practicing within this field, counseling,
mm,
psychotherapy, psychology, psychiatry. It just takes time for you to learn and appreciate all of the twists and turns that this profession will invite you to be aware of and get involved with.
yeah. That's it. I already knew the answer.
I know you knew the answer, but it,
Yeah.
it was worthwhile to just answer it
Yeah.
here.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Um. Let me see. If you see me looking down, it's because I'm looking at my
You're
notes.
looking at your notes, that's fine.
I'm not trying to avoid eye
I don't
contact.
have any. I don't have any notes myself. I'm
Yeah.
just, yeah,
One
from
one thing
my
I
mind.
one thing I've been dealing with is brain fog with the long COVID.
Right.
I'm super forgetful.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I have to write everything down
That makes
on
sense. You found a way around it, which is
yeah,
great.
yeah, it's a coping mechanism.
Mm, mm.
Um, yeah. Um, what are some kind of like obviously this is one method, but what are some good spaces to put yourself in if you want to really rub shoulders with
Counselors,
people?
psychotherapists.
Obviously, LinkedIn is one of
LinkedIn
them.
is really useful. There are lots of free venues that people open up and talk about some of their stuff or training or
Mm,
advice to others about the imposter monster specifically to get
yeah.
rid of. But yeah, you could look on LinkedIn, you can look at meetups, and there are various organizations like Psychology Today, I think, has various listings of meetups or gatherings of people. Um,
Mm,
I'll send you Barton Black and Asian Therapist Network. They also have various different gatherings, even for those who are looking to join the profession, just
mm,
so that you can be aware of all of the ups and downs of being a black person in this profession.
yeah. Um, what is your experience of working in therapy with children?
I started my career as a counselor working as a learning mentor in two different schools, a girls' school and a boys' school. The boys' school really had me develop my understanding of what happens to the teenage brain as it begins to mature. The level of forgetfulness, the level of I'm not doing that, and denial of tasks, responsibilities, really, really present. I would say the biggest learning has been to have patience and compassion for their young minds and just be willing to hold the door open even if they are trying to shut it in your face.
Yeah, yeah. I'm
When
going. Go on, sorry.
I was just going to ask, what makes you ask that question?
Um, because that's a potential path that I might, and I say might very strongly, I might take. At the moment at work, um, obviously I'm not going to say any names, but there is a child that's going through a really um, interesting transition in his life. Um, like he's usually really bubbly and helpful and kind of cheerful, but in the past year he's kind of become a lot more challenging in his behavior. Um, and we've got kind of rules and expectations of behavior. Um, but his behavior became so challenging. I've had to kind of meet with his dad and recently met with his auntie with him present to kind of talk about a few of the things. Like he does a lot of deflecting and kind of avoiding any accountability for his actions, a lot of blaming. Um, and it so happens that his dad is getting remarried. Um, and his auntie kind of mentioned that in the meeting. She's like, is that why you you are the way you are right now? And his eyes started welling up with tears. And I looked at him and I was like, okay, he needs some patience and some care. Um, but yeah, it's just that even that situation made me think about therapy, and how best to approach children when they're going through a traumatic period of their life. How child therapy differs from therapy that you do with adults. Um,
It's it's the level of time it takes for that person to trust you
yeah,
and then deliver what may well be taking place for them. I'm sure you've experienced this as a play
yeah,
therapist, play worker. Um, you can stand beside someone or a young person for a long period of time, show up in their lives whilst they come to your center, and it may take a couple of months or a couple of weeks for them to begin to want to play with you, or at least inquire enough about you to kind of let you and them meet
mm-hmm,
as equals.
mm-hmm,
And from that point, it becomes a little bit easier to just begin having intimate conversations. Not right away, but at some point,
mm,
they might share something with you about what's happening for them in various
yeah,
different walks of life.
yeah,
And it just builds from there. Uh, I haven't worked with very young children. I've worked with teenagers or those just about to enter their teens. But ultimately, trust is a really huge factor
yeah,
for
yeah,
them to begin to want to open up, right? It's not just about sitting and listening. It is about
sure,
also then sharing and building that
mm,
relationship. I'll say one more thing about encountering rupture and being willing to stay through the discomfort of a rupture, a psychological rupture where trust may be seemed to have been lost, or you shared information you shouldn't have shared, and wow, there's a big scene. But staying through that, being present to it, recognizing the hurt, the pain that you may be experiencing, but being willing to mend it and heal from it, really build something that may not ever have arrived had you not had the rupture.
mm, wow.
You're saying, wow, because you've been there, haven't you?
Yeah, I have a lot of times. I'm there right now, funny enough. Um, yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh man, I could talk about loads of incidents where that's happened, and I've had to build that relationship back up. I haven't been able to with every single child,
Yeah.
but you notice it when it happens
Mm.
because they kind of
Yep.
go like that, and
Yep.
it shows in so many different ways. It shows
Mm.
through it like anger.
Yep. Yep. Not talking to you. Not going to look at you. Yeah.
Uh,
Blanking you. Not going to come to the center
yeah,
anymore because of you, but I'm going
yeah,
to make sure I'm not
yeah,
there around you. Yeah.
yeah.
I'm
Oh
going to
yeah.
talk. I'm going to talk to everybody else but you. In fact, I'm going to tell everybody else about you so they can tell you about what happened between us.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no access, no entry point.
Oh man. Yeah, trust
Yeah.
is huge, isn't it?
Trust is huge.
Oh, I don't really, obviously, kind of naturally you know it, but I don't really ever talk about it. That's a good thing to explore, actually, trust. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Mm,
It it's the environment in which you work, they come to play, and other people then work. It's all built on trust.
mm. Yeah.
It's like maybe 5,000 thoughts just happened right there with that. Yeah.
Flashbacks, loads of
Yes.
flashbacks, loads
Yes.
of emails,
Mm.
loads of reports, just
Mm.
same.
Mm. Mm. It
Goodness.
was very present for that moment that you said, yep.
Yeah,
Mm.
that's huge.
Mm. I'm going to
Yeah,
ask another question.
yeah.
Trust and the imposter monster. Does the imposter monster trust you to make it?
No, I don't think so.
No. Would a new friend, would your best new friend trust you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. 100%. It's crazy because I think I think anyone is capable of anything.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, barring that some people have like physical and mental differences, um, I think I think all of us are capable of so much, um, and it all does just start from the mind. Um, and yeah, there's like a mind body connection as well, which
There
I
is.
find, yeah. Having long COVID has been like really, it's been horrible, but it's also been a bit of a teacher because you get to a point where you're like, I really can't do anything about this. This is my new reality. I'm just gonna kind of give up.
Mm,
I can't
mm,
function like I
mm.
used to. I don't feel as strong as I used to.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I remember thinking those thoughts. Sometimes I do still think them, like on a really bad day or I'm feeling super fatigued. But I remember thinking those thoughts, and actually, I'm saying to myself, oh, I'm super weak. Like you're telling yourself these things that aren't 100% set in stone, because you do have some ability to make things happen, but it's the thoughts that just kind of, with the brain fog, it's like it's all you can see.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, when you're really in the thick of that fog, you have to try and kind of get
Yes.
over.
Yes.
So it's
Or
been a lesson.
pause. Just pause. Don't do anything. Just inquire what is it that you are saying, what do you want to say? And pause. Because if you're not saying the thing that you'd like to say, there might be a reason for that. And then
Yeah,
wait until it
yeah,
shows.
yeah, definitely, definitely.
Because we can spend a lot of time battling with these thoughts, imposter monster thoughts, and we spend a lot of energy. Not good enough, I didn't make it, I failed,
Mm,
and failed for a reason.
mm,
And there might well be learning in that reason.
mm.
But if we don't wait to receive the lesson, we continue trying and perhaps failing.
Yeah, yeah, that's literally it. Yeah,
Yeah. And the imposter monster just continues beating you up. It doesn't help. It cannot help.
yeah. Sometimes I'm like, I'm the kind of person that I literally try and use everything that I'm going through to for something. Um, so even with the imposter monster, I will try and use that. Like I'll try and trick myself. It's like a game that I've played since being a kid. It's like a game I've played with myself, and then you play that game long enough, then you start to think that it's reality.
Yes. Here's something I'm just going to throw to you. And the idea is if the imposter monster came up at a time when you were a child and it's still playing out for you now, then is your child right or are you as the adult right in saying, you know what, don't need you anymore?
Yeah, I'd say the obviously yeah, the adult is right, but I also think there's some truth from that child. I think like that's why being a play worker was so beneficial for me because I got to go back and hang out with that kid again and really kind of figure out where a lot of my shit and my baggage comes from. And not everyone has the chance to do that. Some people are kind of stuck in this world, wherever it is, that doesn't give them the chance to, So I'm really grateful for that opportunity. I think everything happens for a reason, and I, you know, I came across something that you would think it's just play, but there's so much more to
Mm,
it.
absolutely.
So
Definitely.
yeah, I think there's some truth for that child because children, in their nature, they're very upfront. You know, they're very honest. Um, Sometimes they're brutally honest.
Sometimes they're brutally honest.
So sometimes a child can be right.
True.
Some child
Yep.
can be right.
Absolutely. I think what's interesting is that Elio just asked, well, doesn't the imposter monster, if its inception was childlike, grow with you as an adult? Which I think is
Mm,
a really interesting
yeah,
concept.
yeah. It becomes more intelligent over time.
Damn it.
That's really profound, actually. Wow. Develops with you, and then it becomes really narcissistic. Well, it is narcissistic anyway. But it's like a narcissistic boyfriend or girlfriend that's just always there. Yeah, that's crazy.
So we're saying goodbye to this narcissistic
Mm,
experience, perhaps
mm,
taking the lessons that it could offer and not much else.
yeah, yeah, that's fantastic. Oh, I'm gonna write that. Thanks, Ollie.
Elio, Elio,
Elia.
Elio.
That's awesome. Imposter monster adult version.
Indeed, indeed. Hmm, profound.
Yeah.
Well, we've got just over 11 minutes left. Elio, do you have any questions you want to pose to either myself or to Lola? I know you can't just keep writing because I'm terrible at reading. Terrible.
I don't have any questions. I feel blessed for being able to be in such a profoundly open and honest discussion.
I thank the co-host here, the person who kind of arranged for this thing to happen in the first place. Lola, I believe that's yours. You take your piece there. Take your portion.
Oh, man. Oh, it's awesome. It's awesome to be here. Nice to meet you, Elio.
Nice to meet you too.
Yeah, I didn't really know what this would kind of turn into, and I don't know what it's going to develop into, but it's, it feels very authentic. It feels like a safe space, and I don't think there's enough of those, especially in our communities. Well, I don't know. I feel like that's a Nigerian surname.
It is a Nigerian surname, very, very Nigerian, and you're right. There are insufficient safe spaces to speak, and or that when you speak, that your truth is heard objectively and not criticized for any reason. Everybody's so judgmental, wants to point a finger, wants to kind of say that, oh, because you've said this makes you that, as opposed to just letting you be you, letting you be open to your transitions in terms of how you feel and the strength that you're trying to gather to be able to move to your new season. So it's good.
Yeah, I feel like in Nigerian communities there is a lot of shutting out of young people and children. I think that kind of stunts our growth. And a lot, I don't know, a lot of it comes from, I think it comes from, obviously there's cultural norms, religion, traumas that our parents have experienced and just kind of thought of as normal, because there's not been any therapy for them. And I think when a lot of like my mum and the older generation, when you mention therapy, it's like, oh well, you must be possessed or
yeah,
ill.
mad. Are you mad?
Yeah, are you mad? Are you all right? Yeah, so then that's so detrimental, not just for the children, but actually for them, because they never really get to overcome those things that they've been through. And that stops them from becoming who they could potentially become. So then they start kind of vicariously trying to live through the children.
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
Which is definitely something I've experienced, but I know from listening to other people's conversations and, observing other people that happens to them as well.
I fortunately didn't experience that, but I don't know if that was because I grew up here in the UK as opposed to back home. But I can definitely attest to what you're saying, that a lot of our culture, because Nigeria, for example, everything's to an extreme. You're either very rich or very poor, spiritually conscious or unconscious of spirituality, or you're in quote unquote the occult,
Yeah.
But I just reflecting on what you were saying, I also recognize that things happen at such a fast pace. It's almost as if you don't get time to process. And of course, if you're not in an environment where you've been allowed to process what traumas you've been through, you then don't openly open that doorway for your children or anybody else to process that. And everything's logical. you know, or spiritual. So if you've banged your head, why would you do that? Didn't you know when you were bending down, you could have banged your head? You should have moved further back. And they've got all these
Yeah.
steps for
Yeah.
you to have used your sense, so to speak.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's tapping into your emotions in that way is definitely a new phenomena. And there's still, I think it's a space where there is a lot of fear, because if you have to really process what you've gone through, you stop. You can't do any more. But you're also right. That's not something, and especially here in the UK, in the UK's education system, even from a young age, they're already tapping into your emotion and trying to get you to express yourself. And I have I see that as a positive and a negative. But yeah, here a lot of the children, you know, are a lot more emotionally driven. Even when I look back at my generation, we're nowhere near into our emotions as children now.
Yeah.
But there's a place for everything. There should be an ideal balance. How you measure that balance would probably be another topic of discussion, I suppose.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I feel
I
like
definitely.
We've got 4 minutes left. The time has literally flown by, as it generally does when we are having a really good and useful conversation. Last thoughts. Mine, I offer you, Lola. I really would like for you to consider and begin your counseling career ASAP. I think, as yourself and Elio were discussing, there is a generation above us who perhaps could really benefit from someone who looks like you, who gets the idea of what cultural experiences they may have had, that can kind of transmute that and transform their lives as a result of talking to you. So that's my wish for you. And I'm going to leave it out there.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's definitely something to definitely think about, is creating more spaces for these conversations and these kinds of communities to develop, because there really isn't enough out there. I wish when I was a kid, you know, there was some type of therapy available for me, um, that was able to also understand the cultural backgrounds that had the impacts that they had on me and also on my mum. Because I think when you understand the culture and you understand history, it's a lot easier to navigate around. Um, yeah, yeah, definitely something to think about. Thanks, guys, man. I feel like I'm on the right path. I'm having the right conversations, for sure.
Last words, Elio, before we conclude.
Just thank you for letting me talk. That's all. I really enjoyed the session. I did.
And would you both be okay with me sharing some of this, if not all of it, on some of my channels?
Yeah, of course, go for it.
Nah.
Always a difficult person. I almost chose to be that person, but I took a step back this time.
And you know, I will send the video of this to you both, and please feel free to share it with whoever, because I think it was a really useful, important conversation to have had.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think so. I'm perhaps, you know, in that sharing as well, there may be others that feel the same way as you, Lola, that will want to create that space, because it is very much needed. It is very much needed.
Yep.
Yeah. Definitely going to explore possibilities that could arise from this.
Absolutely.
So, thanks
Well, I
both.
wish you well. If you both have any further questions, you got me in various different forms and guises.
Yeah.
So I look forward to what happens from here on out for you, Lola.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for even making this happen. You know, I thought it was just going to be a couple of emails and maybe a phone call.
Nah, let's get right in front of the people.
But yeah, no, this has been awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Take care, Leo.
And you too. Bye. Bye, Michael.
Bye, Leo.